Greetings to all and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast and welcome to another Q&A with our good friend Jim McCarty. My name is Jonathan Tong and I'm the facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups at the L&L research page shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group and we do meet twice a week on Zoom. Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, Saturdays from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawof1@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with Zoom links and information on what we'll be talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of our podcast episodes, as well as recordings of previous Q&As with Jim McCarty. Just go to our YouTube channel and click the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawof1@gmail.com if you'd like to join any of our Q&A sessions with Jim. Otherwise, as always, we are delighted and honored to be joined by our good friend Jim McCarty here for some informal questions and Q&As about the Law of One. Since today we are recording on April 4th, 2026, today we are dedicating this session in memory to the 11th anniversary of our dear friend Carla's passing into larger life. So looking forward to having a great time sharing stories together. How are you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing really well. I always love talking about Carla, especially in related to the Law of One. So I'm eager to take whatever questions anyone has.
Indeed. For folks who don't know about the circumstances or when Carla passed, would you mind sharing a little bit on what day she passed and what significance that might have metaphysically?
Well, she passed away on a Wednesday, April 1st, 2015. And that was between two of her favorite days, Palm Sunday before and Easter Sunday afterwards. She was a follower of Jesus Christ her whole life long from the age of 2. And the reason that she passed away then was that she'd been in a hospital bed for about 4 years. Originally, she had a surgery on her upper thorax that helped her to use her arms better to use the computer. But then we decided that surgery on her lower back might be a good idea so she could get around better. She was having trouble with doing that. Unfortunately, that wound never healed. And it was about 4 years where she was in the hospital bed. So one of the good things about this is that when she was younger, she learned how to give without expectation of return to her parents that were impressed with her great intelligence. And so they gave her lots of tasks to do, and they never gave her compliments, just criticism. So she learned how to give with that expectation of return. Now, when she was in her hospital bed those 4 years, in order to balance that, she would need to learn how to receive the love offerings of others. That was what Ra had said. And so the end of her life was the balancing of giving and then receiving, because I made food for her. I took her to the bathroom. I took her to doctor's appointments. I washed her clothes. I got her dressed. And so that was something that also helped me to open my heart more, because it was originally my room. When Don, Carl, and I were together at the Watershed Trail House during the Raw Contact, we all had our separate bedrooms. And so Carla and I kept that going here. She had a bedroom upstairs, and I had a bedroom downstairs. But when she was in the hospital bed, my bedroom became her bedroom. It was our bedroom, and my heart was opening to her. So it had spiritual significance. And she passed away on a Wednesday, April 1st at 6:10 p.m. And I knew that something was going on because I had just given her some pain medication, and I was giving her some water, and she just took her hand and she just pushed the glass of water away. And I tried to give it to her again. She just pushed it away. And she was looking into the far distance. And then she passed into large life. The breath came out of her body, and she was gone.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, and gotta say, it's pretty funny, for lack of a better word, that she would have chosen to pass on the day that we know as April Fool's Day. Especially Fool being like such an important part of the Law of One and the archetypical mind. Do you
It
mind
is the
commenting on that a little bit?
it is the most important card. You've made your choice. You're walking into space, and anybody looking at you walking will say, you're going to fall down into the chasm down a mile below. But you have the faith that your foot will step on something solid, and you just keep walking back into unity with the one infinite creator. So I think that's what she did.
That's some next level adept stuff, if there ever was. Yeah, what a beautiful thing. And I know many folks have expressed to you before that they have felt Carla's presence in their life. And we hope that she is with us today and is going to join us in this celebration.
Oh,
And
I'm sure she is. She has been helping people all around the world for as long as she's been gone. I've heard story after story. And I know Elaine has been feeling her presence when she's been in the hospital undergoing surgery. And I have a friend in France that's been in contact with her for 6 years telepathically, and she's been helping her on her spiritual journey. And the stories just go on and on. I mean,
no doubt. And I'm
she's
sure
still
they will
serving.
continue. Yeah, what a beautiful thing. Well, thank you, Carla, and blessings to you, and love you much. I did have some passages that you shared with me from Carla's autobiography. Would love to look at those together and discuss. Before I do that, we do have a number of folks here on the Zoom call, so I did want to ask if anybody had any questions specifically about Carla's passing, things that we were just talking about before we change the subject a little bit. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand on camera or hit the little raise hand icon. And at any point, would love to hear any questions that you have for Jim about Carla. Otherwise, if it's okay with you, let me go ahead and do a screen share. So let's see, Jim, we have 5 passages to look at and discuss. Would you like to read this first one?
Okay. I think there is something in wanderers which hungers for a holy life. The way most monasteries are set up, the secluded life is offered at the expense of linking fully into the general milieu with our work and playtimes. The participants are seen by others to be leading a devotional life, and there is respect given just because one sees the uniform of a monk. Jim and I, and a rapidly growing number of others, seek this life in the midst of society without a uniform, without that burden of respect, without any pretension of doing it right. I most heartily recommend this life to others who so hunger, for it has fed me most plenteously, directed me most immaculately, and given me wonderful companions along the way. There is much to give up to embrace this way of life. Personal ambition needs to cease, and much work and disciplining of the mind's habits needs doing, not just for a spell at first, but forever. As far as I know, one needs to give up set opinions about what should be done next, for the Creator is out, often has a surprise in store, if we can but be listening for it. So planning is out, and it does not work to worry about what we shall do tomorrow for money, for position, for labor. All that belongs in the hands of the Creator and His will for us.
So beautiful. Am I remembering correctly? You said that most of what Carla wrote in her autobiography was sort of preparation for what was to become the Wanderer's Handbook?
A great deal of it was. I would say about half of it was. But the other half was dealing with daily things. She was the president of the Episcopal Church Women. Hmm. And as the president, she often cooked for many of the women in the group. And in 2 places, she cooked for 200 people.
Wow.
Now, that's amazing. And she was the best cook I ever knew. She could make any food taste better than I could ever believe possible. And also, it's quite authentic. She talks about Don's passing, taking his own life, and how she felt she failed him, that she couldn't help him to see that what he was feeling around him was not appropriate. Nobody was going to bust us for selling cocaine, which is one of his fears. And so she thought she failed him, and she would have gladly died instead of him, but of course that didn't happen. So a lot of it is talking about how she responded. Um, she went over to our local Episcopal church. She was a cradle Episcopalian, and she went over to St. Luke's for the next 6 years, about once or twice a week, and just prostrated herself on the floor in front of the altar. And after about 6 years of going through this type of grieving, she felt that she had done her best, that she wished things had turned out better, but they didn't. And so she felt like she could accept herself better. The grieving process is something that everyone has to go through. If you put it off, it won't go away. You need to work with it. People are worth grieving for. I don't grieve for Carla, but I miss her every day.
No doubt. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Cannot imagine what it felt like inside of her, all those years of grieving and feeling like she could have done more. Thank you for sharing all of your reflections on that. If it's okay with you, let's go ahead and take a look at another passage from Carla's autobiography. Would you like to read this passage, Jim?
Sure. We need to get into our hearts and connect with that portion of ourselves that knows the truth of our reason for being here every day, every hour, if possible. We need to experience ourselves just being, abiding, resting in the essence of love itself. It is so easy to panic in the midst of exhaustion and pain and forget that our mission here is largely to be, to find and to share our deepest, sweetest essence with this dear planet, and so aid in lightening the consciousness of Terra as she moves into a new vibration and a new area of space. It is a relief and a joy to be able to shrug the world off our shoulders and hand it gladly back to the Infinite One, who is most happy to take it all, to abide in faith that is our beau geste. All else, all action, whatever, comes from that foundation of abiding faith. Let us build our earthly house on the rock of a simple faith, of faith that trusts the kind of balances of destiny, a faith that stands ready to act and ready to wait as the heart moves us. When I am there, I know that all is well and all will be well. What a glorious peace.
Such a beautiful passage. Any particular thoughts, reflections on this, Jim? Any particular reasons why you wanted to share this passage with viewers?
Well, I think it's something that connects us all. I think that basically what she's talking about is wanderers, which I think that anybody who's interested in the law of one is very likely a wanderer, and that we can all support each other on our dear planet, Mother Earth or Terra, and that as we work together and abide in faith, that what we set our attention to do together as a group is more likely to manifest the way we intend it to.
Can't argue with that, for sure. Yeah, I love the expression, abiding in faith. Was that a phrase that she used often?
Yes, I think it's probably one of the most used words or concepts in the law of one. It's not necessarily faith in anything, but just faith that all is well and that all will be well. Everything's happening for a reason. There are no mistakes.
Such an important thing to remember. Raquel, did you have a follow-up question?
I did. It kind of, that passage and what Jim just said just relates to my original question, which is well, hi, Jim. Nice to see you. And I'm glad we're here celebrating Carla. Um, I just wanted to know with this passage and as a follow-up, I'm a better teacher than student, meaning like I know and understand the law of one, but then implementing it in my life sometimes I I'm not the best in certain areas. So how was Carla at living and implementing the log one once she understood it fully? And when did it start to like take root where, because now this passage is like she was in her beingness and it's hard to get there. Like, how do you get from like understanding the log one to now living it to now where it's fully embodied with her? Like, how did that process happen for her?
Well, I think that from an early age, Carla had the feeling that there was something that could be called the law of one in everyone's life. In her life, it manifested as contacts with Jesus that occurred from the age of 2 to 5, where she had a problem when she was born. Her left eye was pointed towards the third eye, and the surgery made it necessary to wear glasses. So when it was time for her to take her nap next to the window, she would put her glasses in the Venetian blind. And if the sun was out, the ray of sun would come through the glasses and she would travel out. That was her first leaving of her body. And she would meet Jesus. And Jesus never said a word to her. She could see that he had been traveling a long time on the dusty trail. His sandals were dusty, his hair was matted. But when he looked into her eyes, she knew what unconditional love was. So I think that this unconditional love was her way of looking at the world around her as being one part of the Creator, uh, what Jesus called the Father, what we call the Creator, or some people call the Spirit, or there's lots of names for it. So I think that was the foundation that she built her feeling of the law of one was the way to go. So when the law of one contact began, I think that was probably the best confirmation she ever had. All of her channelings from 1973 on, when she first started channeling Hatan, spoke about the unity of creation made by the logos or the love of the Creator. And that love of the Creator then, with the free will focus through it, created all the creation out of light, photons moving in various directions and speeds of direction. So all of this came together for her more and more throughout her life. And so she lived the law of one from an early age, and it just got more and more her travel of the path back into unity with the Creator by being of service to anybody in any way she could.
Mm. So when you guys understood that she was placing herself in martyrdom, was she able to retract herself and kind of get that understanding quickly and move forward, or was this a process for her? Because, learning, knowing, and implementing is two different things. Yeah.
Well, it didn't come easily for her to
That's
back
what I
off
was
from
trying to
being a
figure out.
martyr.
Yeah.
Don and I had to eventually make the decisions for her, because she would do anything to have another contact with Ra, because she saw that as the manifestation of her greatest dreams in life. And she's quite willing to be a martyr. So we finally convinced her that we needed to make that choice. And most of the time she would agree.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to understand how she felt doing that stuff because knowing some things and doing it because it's the best for you, sometimes we don't do that. So I just wanted to know how she felt during that time. Thank you so much for sharing, Jim.
But thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
Great questions, Raquel. Much appreciated. So, Jim, were there many times when you and Dawn said no to doing another channeling session and she had strong objections to that? Or did
Not
she
really.
generally go along?
Most of the time she was in good shape. But a few times she wasn't, and we suggested that it wouldn't be a good time to have a session. And she kind of said, "Oh, okay." But she didn't complain that much. I mean, she knew that she was, a martyr, and she's willing to be a martyr. We just didn't want her to be one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can certainly see that, and certainly following the example of Jesus as a martyr, I can certainly see where she would be coming from on that. Can we take a look at another passage? This is the third one you sent. Would you like to read this one?
Somehow, I've always known that my medium as an artist and as a spirit was my life. If there's anything I have to offer, to teach, it is my living. Imperfect in the extreme, imprecise, bumbling, awkward, good hearted, and usually cheerful, ironic, and amused, I present no inspiring photograph to the world, as far as I know. But there is, and I am strict about this, that mystery. I want to look at it all the time. I want this deity that made me to be first and foremost, always in my thoughts. I fail constantly to achieve this, but the bare effort has transformed my life. Oh, fellow wanderers, I cannot overstress the importance of persistence in this work of discovering the heart's home in which we already dwell. Let your suffering end again and again as all falls away except faith and mystery. And suddenly, inexplicably, that presence is utterly with you, blessing beyond tears, joy beyond words.
Such a beautiful passage expressing things that I don't think I've ever really heard or seen from her before. Do you have any thoughts, reflections on this passage, its meaning for you and your recollections of Carla?
Well, she's probably the best writer I ever have read. All of her writing has spiritual qualities in it. And this one, she's very authentic. She didn't see herself just because she was a channel for the raw contact or other entities or a good writer as being perfect. She saw she had the same kind of faults that everybody does. And she wanted to let everybody know that it's okay to have those faults. We all work with that. We all have catalysts to work with. Those are good things to work on. If you came here and you were perfect, there wouldn't be anything to do. We're here to learn and to grow and to share and to serve. And so that's what she did. And she was the best at it that I ever knew.
I think the part that really caught my eye in this passage was the very first thing she said. I've always known that my medium as an artist and as a spirit was my life. That her life, she lived it basically as a work of art. Super, yeah, beautiful. And you can certainly see it in the way she lived her life and the life she lived. I don't remember if I've asked you about this before, but did she have other artistic expressions? Did she paint ever? Did she do anything else?
No, she wrote poetry.
Poetry.
And many times her brother Tommy would put poetry to music. But
Wow.
yeah, she has a book of poetry. I made an audiobook out of that.
Oh.
And so she was a writer. She loved to share her heart however she could.
Would love to see one of those poems and maybe discuss that next time. Yeah, beautiful. So much appreciate that. Shall we take a look at another passage?
Okay.
About this one. Do you want to read this one?
It is this attitude that I hope to share. The world of the wanderer tends to be drab, laced with the pain of separation, the feeling of loss, the poignant pain of homesickness. If I can penetrate that clouded inner landscape and throw some sunshine into the world picture for some, then I'm happy. For I do feel that there is much to rejoice in during this time of dislocation and transition to the next century and millennium. We may rejoice in each other, in the waking up of so many in the world, of the growing net of love that is catching us all and gently, lovingly hauling us in.
So beautiful. Yeah, she sure does have a way with words, and you can see the light that she's talking about shining through there. Any thoughts, reflections on this passage?
Well, I think that she really had a lot of affection for wanderers because they're the brothers and sisters of sorrow is generally what wanderers are called. And they come to this planet because they see so many difficulties, wars, dissension, anger, frustration, disease, as ways to be of service, catalysts that they can help other people to use. if they can awaken to the fact that they are a wanderer, or at least that they've come here to be of service to others. So I think this is something that she wanted to know more about, how she could share this quality of being a wanderer with people that wrote her and said that they had what they felt was their spiritual journey going on, but they didn't have anybody they could talk to about it. If they tried to say something about, well, there might be extraterrestrial intelligence that communicates with us, people would say, yeah, right, you're nuts. So that was basically the reason that she started Homecomings back in 1995, so that anybody that had that feeling that they had a spiritual journey, that they didn't have anyone to talk with, could come and talk to anybody they wanted to, and nobody would think they were crazy. And so that's why we have so many homecomings all over the planet now, not just here. As you know, now we've got too many people. My home and garden and the yard can't take them. So we go to Terrapin Hill, where we'll have 80 this year. But they've been in Seattle, in Pennsylvania, in Prague, in Berlin. And I believe we're going to have one in the Netherlands this year, too.
Yeah. I'm sure Carla would be delighted to be there for sure, and will be. I wonder that attitude that she's talking about of rejoicing, was that something that came naturally to her on a day-to-day basis? Were there many days where she found it perhaps more challenging to have that attitude?
Oh, I'm sure there were some days, but mostly she got up early in the morning. In those days, she got up earlier than I do. And she just loved that time of day where she could write. She had a computer that she called Teeny, Teeny, and she and Teeny would type out some thoughts that came much easier when the morning was calm. There weren't any cars, no horns, no trains going by, and so she would just be very creative at that time of the day. And she felt that was really one of the basic parts of her spiritual journey, was writing down information that she could share with others when they got together for channelings, or just a visit, or for a homecoming, uh, whatever chance she had, that she would share.
So wonderful. Yeah. I imagine she did some poetry writing in those times too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Nice. I have one more passage to look at that I think you've spoken to already. Let's take a look at this. Want to read this one?
We need to talk to each other, wanderers of earth. We must tell each other our stories, brothers and sisters of sorrow, as we focus on sharing our heart's deepest love with the consciousness upon this dear planet. This is my story, my time of calling all wanderers to service most worthy. We are here to assist in the harvest at this, the dawn of the millennium. The fields lie white with harvest, yet there are not enough workers to gather it in, says our Holy Bible. But there are enough willing servants here now. You who hear this voice, remember, let your heart open, blossom, and unfold in the remembering of the mission we came to share. This planet is a birthing, an age of new vibrations, new energies, new possibilities. Let those who remember stand together now, linking hearts and hands in the creating of a web of love about this planet, a netting of support and strength for the gathering of ripened souls. Let our stories be to each other the stuff we use to link us in harmony and unity of purpose. Let us encourage each other, exhort and urge each other to love ever more, ever better, as best we can, any way we can. Love one another. I believe our salvation is that simple. And that is the lesson of third density. Love others more than we love ourselves.
Yeah. I was looking through the Wanderer's Handbook the other day and marveling at all the different stories from other people that were shared in there as part of her teachings. Can you talk a little bit about that? Did she meet those people in person, or were they sent to her by email, the stories that they were sharing?
No, most of them came in either snail mail or emails. And she got so many different ones. She put them in 106 different categories. and those became chapters and outlines for chapters in the Wanderer's Handbook. So that's really the way it came about. And then she asked me if I could go ahead. Ian Jaffrey was a fellow from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, who in 1991 was able to get our website to be searchable. And so I searched our website for quotes that would match what Carla wanted to talk about as a response to the Wanderer's questions. So that's basically how the Wanderer's Handbook came about.
So wonderful. Yeah, and as long as we're on the subject, did want to put in a plug for that, as shall we say. For folks who did not know this already, if you go to the L&L Research website there, you can see copies of the Wanderer's Handbook, as well as Living the Law of One, as well as the Concept Guide, as well as the Raw Contact. And yeah, I really cannot recommend all of those highly enough. They're really full of beautiful teachings and beautiful stories from fellow wanderers. And if you wish, you can buy paper copies of those books for you to keep on your shelf in your library, but they are also available for free as PDFs that you can download, because that has been part of the mission of L&L Research, to make sure that all of these profound spiritual teachings are free and available, and that money is not required for them. Still a great way to support L&L Research if you want to buy a copy. But if
within the next 6 weeks, there's going to be another Living the Law of One 102, the outer work that I wrote from Carla's outlines. I also wrote 103, the inner work from her outlines, but that's not going to be available for a while. But Austin said by the time homecoming rolls around, 102 is going to be available.
Oh, so nice. Yeah, looking forward to that for sure. Did also want to say thank you to Daniel Shields, who does a lot of the web work for L&L Research, including the search engine, which is a great way to look up keywords and ideas and passages.
Yeah. He's amazing. There's a little symbol up when you first open up our website on the upper right corner. If you tap on it, you can get one of 26 different languages that the whole website can be translated into.
Yeah, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all that. And I did want to make sure that we have time for other questions that folks have. I see Neely had a question in the chat window. Neely, would you like to go ahead and ask?
Yes. Good morning, Jim. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So first, I wanted to talk about something that you had mentioned earlier in this call, and that's about how Carla's catalyst was also a catalyst to you in way of opening your heart. And this is something that I've been talking about with other Law of One members about. Sometimes we look at our own catalyst and our own suffering, and we're like, okay, I did all the work, I'm not really sure what's my lesson, but sometimes the catalyst is somebody else's lesson. And this is something that our friend Katrina, who's on the call today, really spoke about and touched my heart. So thank you for that, for reiterating that. My question is, Carla has always been and still is a great inspiration to me, and a huge help. And I read the things she wrote during her lifetime. I was wondering, you had mentioned in one of the earlier calls that you had visitations, more than 100 visitations from Carla after she passed away. And I was wondering if there was any messages, inspirations for us as seekers from the other side that you can share with us.
Yeah. In all of those over 100 dreams, Carla gave me a lot of information that was very helpful to me. And I would say that the basic gist was, look at whatever is happening to you as part of your spiritual journey that you chose before this incarnation, especially if it is difficult, if it is catalyst that gives you pain, that look at that pain as food for growth. Discover if you have a difficulty with somebody, how you could either talk it out and solve it, or how you could meditate and use it as something that you could relive and make it larger than it was before. And then let the opposite. If it was anger, then the love get just as big as the anger. And see both of those ways that you could know the creator and the creator could know itself. And that would be the using of the catalyst to help you go one more step on your spiritual path. So that any catalyst could be another step on your spiritual path.
Beautiful. Any follow-ups on that, Neely?
No, thank you. That was beautiful and very, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yasi, did you have a question?
Yes. Hi. Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, Jim. It's truly an honor to be here with you and everybody else in the group. I feel like we alluded to this question a little bit already because you brought up kind of the grief and loss that, for example, Carla went through having lost Dawn and how you feel you miss Carla now that she's gone. And then Neely's question about Catalyst. So obviously, grief and loss are big catalysts for us. You said something about how we're supposed to just feel it and to grieve someone, and we're not supposed to bypass it and feel it. I can understand that. I guess recently, though, I've been wondering about how we're supposed to grow from it. Like what, because there just seems to be so much loss and grief energy surrounding us right now. I just feel it like fractally projecting outwards. Like I feel it personally, and then I feel it on Earth and with other people. How are we supposed to navigate that grief and loss so that it actually gives us something positive? Or how did you do it, having lost Dawn and then having lost Carla? Is there any advice you have for how to glean something positive and, good, I guess, when it seems so hard?
Yes. I think the basic um, concept that we're dealing with here is how the creator knows itself better through everything we ever do or think. There are no mistakes. And we also have to realize that we are the creator too, so that whatever is happening in our life helps us to know ourselves better, whether it's grief or joy, anything, any emotion, any activity helps us to know who we are, helps the creator to know who it is, and that everything is a step along the spiritual path that we have chosen. Only the veil of forgetting makes it seem like it is something that is impossible to process or to live with. But that veil of forgetting can be penetrated when you have the faith that all is well and is happening the way it's supposed to. And I believe wanderers feel that more than anyone else. But any awakened soul can feel that and experience that and know that you travel your path through catalyst. If there's no catalyst, there's no path. That's food for growth. So that would be my way of looking at it.
Thank you. Any
Thank you.
follow-ups?
That's beautiful.
Well, thank you for your question.
Any follow-ups on that, Yasi?
I guess my only question is a personal one for you, having, for example, lost Dawn and Carla. Did you feel like you were able to do what you just said? Were you able to look at those and think, okay, this is just showing me something about myself, about my journey? Was it hard to get there? Did it take a long time?
Well, with Don, it didn't take quite as long. I only knew Don for 4 years during the raw contact. So I felt so much grief for Carla because it was very hard on her. She felt, like I said, that she'd failed him.
Yeah.
But when Carla
Yeah.
passed into larger life, for the next, I guess, 2 years, I was grieving quite a bit. But what I had to give me solace, I guess, was that I still had some contact with Carla. And basically what she said was telepathically to me 3 days after she passed into larger life, anytime you want Just feel me or hear me. Just give me a call. Just ask. And so I developed a little ritual in my computer. I typed out what I heard her saying. And I basically, I called her Carla or Sweetie. And she called me Mick or Meekle because she had two other Jims in her life, her first husband and her younger brother. So I was Mick, and if it was especially tender, Meekle. So I would call her Sweetie, and I would type out the response I heard from her, and they were in my computer. I think they probably still are.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
sharing that.
So beautiful. Yeah, I don't think I've heard you share that before. Thank you for sharing that with us. Jim, I had three questions that were sent in to us ahead of time from three folks in our group. And if you don't mind, I'd like to ask a question from Simba, who's asking, from the standpoint of hindsight, when you meditate on your relationship with Miss C, or Carla, after all these years, what have you learned about her and or have grown to realize about her recently that you had not when she was incarnate or recently?
Well, when she was incarnate, I didn't hear stories about her all over the world helping people in different countries. And it's become just, oh yeah, that's another one. I don't know how many I've heard. Like I said before, uh, I think the first one that occurred that I heard about was just about a year after she passed in a larger life. Uh, Gary and Trish and Austin were in Prague for one of our gatherings there, a homecoming gathering. And it was the first channeling they'd done uh, without Carla. And as they were tuning in a room just outside where the gathering was, uh, Trish looked around and saw Carla with her arms around everybody. And so she was there to help them. So that was the first one I ever heard of. But I've heard, dozens and dozens since then, all around the world.
I can imagine. How about from reading her autobiography? Have you discovered anything, realized anything about her from reading what was in there that you hadn't really realized before?
Not really. That was written in 1993 and 94. When I first found that, I guess about 8 weeks ago, back in my bedroom, I'd forgotten that she wrote it. And I was reading it for the first time. Now I'm going through it for the fourth time. And I'm familiar with everything she's saying. She's talking about the first groups that came here after Don had passed into larger life and for channeling. And she gives them names and how that they also worked together when she went down to the Calvary Episcopal Church, where later we were married. And they helped her in the kitchen to clean it up. And then they would come home and sometimes they would help her cook a meal. Because in those days, after we had our channeling meditations in our uh, living room I have now, we fed people meals. And nowadays, we just usually Trish just brings some cookies or some cakes or something for treats.
Yeah, yeah. Another beautiful gift of service. Much, much appreciated. And thanks to Trish and Gary and Austin also for continuing that work. I had another question from Luri who asked, how easy was channeling for Carla? How long did it take for her to channel? Could she only channel with you and Don?
Well, she started channeling because originally the channeling began, it wasn't LL research, it was back in 1961 when Don was looking for ways to try to discover more about how the world worked. He was 17 years old when he was taking flying lessons from Captain Tom Mantell at Bowman Field, which at that time was the airport in Louisville. And Captain Mantell was flying back from Georgia to Louisville with two wingmen in 1947. And there had been calls to the Kentucky State Patrol saying that there was a weird shaped object somewhere over Mayfield, Kentucky. And so the Godman Tower at Frankfurt asked if Captain Mantell could divert his journey and try to get out to Mayfield, see what's going on. So he did, and his two wingmen went with him for a while. But when he saw the UFO, it looked like an ice cream cone, and it was metallic. And as soon as he said that, it shot straight up in the air. And so he tried to follow it. And when he got to 20,000 feet, he passed out because he didn't have oxygen in his World War II plane. It crashed and he was killed. And so that got Don on a spiritual journey because he knew Captain Mantell. And if Captain Mantell had seen something that looked like a UFO, Don wanted to know more about it. So eventually he got together a group of his students. He was a professor of physics at the University of Louisville at the time. And he had this kind of charisma about him that if the students they threw pennies on the floor once when he walked in. So before he started a class, he picked up about 100 pennies. And then he started a class. And then one other time, they hired this waitress dressed like a bunny, really sexy, and with a tray with had a drink on it. And so she brought it in and she gave it to Don, and Don lifted the top off the drink, said, "Too much vermouth." And then he started his class. So when he said, "I'd like to have 12 of you students have an experiment with me. I'm going to do a scientific experiment." He didn't tell them he's going to try to get some channeling going. So 12 of the students said so. At that time, it's Feed Scientific School, they were all males. So one of the students, Jim, another Jim, asked if he could bring his girlfriend. And Don said, okay. And it turned out to be Carla Rueckert. So after about a month or so of meeting once a week, no channeling was happening. He didn't tell him channeling might happen. He said something interesting would happen, but nothing was happening except mouths were opening and shutting and strange. That was conditioning in those days. So eventually, Walt Rogers was the one who had given Don information indirectly through Hal Price. Hal Price worked for Ford Motor Company. He transferred to Louisville, but he also was a pilot. He went out to Bowman Field when Don was there, and they got to talking. And Hal Price told him about Walt Rogers in Detroit had a face-to-face encounter with a UFO, an entity named Hatan, member of a social memory complex. So they had what we now call the Brown Notebook. And that information was spiritually oriented. And so Walt Rogers was told by Hatan, if you get together a group of people and meditate, we can answer your questions as long as they're spiritually oriented. So that's where the Brown Notebook came from. That's where Don found out about channeling. And that's where he decided to try to get channeled. But nothing happened until Walt Rogers came down to Louisville and joined Don's group and channeled Hatan. And they said, we have contact with everyone, but you're analyzing the contact. You're thinking it's your words. If you do that, there won't be any further words. What you need to do is speak freely and analyze the message afterwards. So that's how channeling actually began at Elno Research. So everybody eventually learned how to channel except for Carla. She loved the meditation, but she really wasn't interested in channeling until all of the students who were then a part of Don's group got jobs and moved away. And so Don was the only channel left. So she said, Carla, would you like to try to learn how to channel? And Carla said, well, okay, if you really want me to. And so the first words she ever channeled on February 23rd, 1973, were, we were having great difficulty with this instrument. And after that, things got easier. She became the best channel I ever heard of, trance or conscious.
About how long did it take for her to get comfortable channeling?
It didn't take long at all. After that first time, things just kept expanding. And she had a natural talent for it.
No doubt about it. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I have a similar question from Jim, another Jim, who says, in your experience working alongside Carla, what qualities or disciplines allowed her to remain such a clear and dedicated instrument for channeling? I believe I have heard her speaking of having a certain naivete that allowed a clear flow of information, but wonder, as it's usually easier to see things in other selves, Is there anything in particular from Jim's point of view that comes to mind? What made her such a clear, dedicated instrument for channeling?
Well, basically, I would say the foundation of it was she set her intention to be a channel. She wanted to do the best that she could. And then she had this quality of what she later called hanging her ass out over the line and just saying whatever came without trying to analyze it at all. And that, I think, is the key to channeling. Getting out of the way, don't think about it, don't analyze, just speak it. And sometimes that's not so easy when you're not sure what the next word is going to be. Many times she went word by word contact, and most of the time she used concepts. She unraveled a ball of concepts. And she always said, I never got everything. There's still more that I forgot. And yet her channelings were a couple of pages long to answer to one question.
So fascinating, and we could spend another 2 hours talking about that and unpacking that for sure. We are actually kind of approaching the end of our time. I did see that Nico had 2 questions in the chat window, and Nico, if you don't mind, the first of your questions, I think Jim has actually answered before a couple of times, and I can refer you to some of those previous sessions if you'd like to hear it. Otherwise, the second question might be an interesting one to end our Q&A on. Would you like to ask your second question?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. And hi, Jim. It's nice to be talking to you and seeing you once again. So the last question is just to lighten up the mood a little bit after we talked about a lot of serious stuff just now. The question is, which modern TV show would Carla enjoy the most, and what character would she relate to the most?
Which modern TV show?
Yes.
I have no idea. Ever since Carla passed into larger life, I never watched television.
Did you guys watch any TV shows together?
No, I don't even know how to turn my television on. My television did come on 2 years ago when lightning struck outside.
Oh,
and I could turn it off, but I don't know how to turn it on.
Oh, how funny.
I'm sorry, I haven't got an answer for you.
Good question, though.
Thanks anyway.
Yeah, indeed. Speaking of ending things on a lighter note, why don't we go ahead? Got a fun little April edition pop quiz for you. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of our times together, just to end our otherwise serious discussions on a lighter note and maybe look for loved one connections in pop culture. Since we are recording this in the first week of April 2026, the day before Easter Sunday, it would seem only fitting to have a pop quiz on Jesus and Easter. Should start off by asking, did you and or Carla have any particular Easter traditions that you followed, or any that you still follow today?
No, she always liked to cook a special meal for Easter. And I think we had an extra meditation.
Nice.
Jesus
didn't go to
Lord
church services or anything.
Jesus was her Lord and Savior her whole life.
So, did you guys ever go to Easter services at her old church or anything?
No, never at Calvary. She transferred from Calvary downtown to St. Luke's, which is about 3 blocks from here. And I think I went to one of the Easter services there.
Nice. Well, I'm not going to ask you any pop questions about church services, but I am going to ask you some questions about Jesus according to the law of one, according to channeling sessions. So these may or may not be easy for you, and these may or may not be new to our viewers or folks on the Zoom call, but that's what we're going to do. So your first question, these are all true or false questions. Your first question, true or false, according to quote, Jesus incarnated on other planets?
I say that's false.
It is actually true, believe it or not. At least in this session, on January 7th, 1990, Quo said, I'm in the interest of time, I'm not going to read the whole passage on the screen. Folks, if you're interested, go to the L&L Conscious Channel Library and find January 7th, 1990. Quo did say, the phenomenon known to you as Jesus is a principle of the Logos or love. And this entity, again and again, on planet after planet, this entity comes into incarnation with a special character of partial remembrance. Again and again, this message is misunderstood. But this entity has helped many, many civilizations. How weird is it to think that Jesus has been on other planets, like on the other side of the galaxy, on the other side of the universe? There's planets where third density entities know Jesus.
Yeah, well, that's really not a surprise. I should have known that.
That's just trippy. Probably not something they talk about in church services much, I guess. I do have a follow-up question on this, though. True or false? According to Quo, Jesus was crucified on other planets.
Well, I'll have to say yes on that.
Yeah, indeed. This was from May 11th, 2022, and this was in response to a question I asked. This was a question that I sent in because I found that so shocking and surprising. With reference to this, Quo did say, with referring to Jesus on other planets, this oftentimes results in what you may call various degrees of sacrifice, which is shown or represented by what you have called the cross. In order to exemplify the sacrifice of earthly perceptions, there is much more to the life experience than has ever been perceived before becoming aware of the teachings of the one known as Yehoshua.
Carla actually channeled Jesus a couple of times.
Oh, I don't remember. Well, when was that?
I don't remember the date. I probably could find it just by, well, I get a lot of Jesuses if I Google Jesus on our website. But yeah, once it was Amira.
I didn't know that.
Amira. Actually turned out to be Jesus. And the other time it was actually Jesus.
Oh, fascinating. I will have to look for that. Yeah, just the idea that Jesus would incarnate on planet after planet after planet, knowing that he was going to be crucified every time he did that, just is all the more amazing. Not that surprising, I think, if one looks at all of the archetypes that refer to crossed legs and 90-degree angles and death and resurrection and all that kind of stuff and transformation. Super fascinating. I have another question for you. How about this one? True or false? According to Quo, Jesus was resurrected from the grave in his physical body.
True.
Depends on how you look at it, I suppose. And I'm only looking at one session. They may have said something different elsewhere. But on April 2nd, 1995, question was, describe the nature of the resurrection body that Jesus appeared in. Quo, this has been edited for brevity, but basically said that, described it as an electrical body or the metaphysical body. It is a body which is far more densely filled with light and indistinguishable from normal physical illusory bodies. However, their actual arena of living and working is within what we would call the metaphysical universe. I've read this passage through several times, and I'm still not 100% sure what to make out of it, but it seems like it could be like some sort of thought form or light body or energy that is indistinguishable from a physical body. Does that make sense to you, Jim? Does that seem like something that could be like a thought form of sorts?
Yeah, a thought form or a body from the inner planes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess I'm batting 333 today.
Which is pretty good. You're pretty consistent with that. I think I have one more question for you.
Okay.
True or false?
500.
According to Ra, Jesus will incarnate on earth one more time before graduation or harvest.
False. I believe those of the same vibration will incarnate here.
Yeah. Yeah, which is super fascinating. Again, I will not read through this whole passage here, but this was from the Raw Contact. It was session 17, question 22, and said that, yes, those of its consciousness would return at the harvest, and that there are others of the identical congruency of consciousness that will welcome to those to fourth density. So, Yeah, isn't that amazing? That Christ consciousness could be incarnated in any of us here on this Zoom call, or you are watching
Yes,
this on video.
that's one thing that we all can do.
Yeah. And we have a great example to follow in you and our dear friend Carla, for sure. Thank you for teaching us about unconditional love and teaching us how to embody Christ consciousness. Thanks again for your time and being here, Jim, and for sharing this special time in remembrance of our friend together. Did you have any last thoughts, reflections you wanted to share with our group before we say goodbye?
Well, I just discovered somebody, an LNL research member, that appeared on my screen, Mr. Morris Hoagland. Good to see you, Morris.
Hey. Good old friend.
Well, thoughts to share. I would say if you all would like to travel the same path that Carla did, put yourself in the position of anybody who needs service around you, or look for people who need service and set your intention to be of whatever service you can, whether it's to help solve a disease, a problem with another neighbor, shortage of money, anything. Do whatever you can to be of service. This is why we're all here, to serve each other more than we serve ourselves. And then we can go back either to our home planet if we're wanderers, or the fourth density if we are not. And the way we do that is unconditional love, loving others more than we love ourselves.
Thank you so much for the teachings and for the sharings, always from an open heart, from unconditional love. Thank you, Jim, for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all the friends at LNL Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all of you who joined us on this very special Zoom session today, thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. And for you watching this on video at some time in the near or distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We're sending you our love light. We are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator. Adonai. Namaste.